All right, but Secret House is back. Secret House Against the World, Tokyo-based hip-hop art and culture conversations, album discussions from the underground, independent, avant-garde, abstract, experimental. I was proud of myself when I rifled all those off in order the other day, and I sent you the thing. I was like, this is good for me.
Yeah, you killed it.
Yeah, I felt good about that one.
Even in the moment, you might see my eyes, like in the video, just being like... Because I was also impressed in that moment. I'm like, oh man, you're just off the dome.
We have done this like 150 times probably. But yeah,
true.
Today we're back, Jed and I, to discuss an album by Old Burger Beats. You hear his beats in the background. The album title is called 74, Out of Time. 17 songs, 45 minutes. It just dropped on the 16th of February. We're about a week and a half out, something like this from that. Old Burger Beats is a Norwegian producer, beatmaker, artist, and let me give you all a little factoids about the album here, right? So Old Burger Beats' new opus, 74 Out of Time, is a multifaceted and stunning exploration of sounds and eras. I'm reading this directly off of his joint. I didn't write this, but every track, in addition to every track being produced at 74 beats per minute, the album harks back to the year 1974, particularly the music, the records, the activism, the artwork, and the aesthetics. It's also incredibly current, as the Out of Time portion of the title suggests. It very much refers to the present. It promotes a sense of urgency in the face of current affairs, such as COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, as well as contentious politics sweeping across the U.S. and Europe. So that's what we got. And I think that's a very interesting approach to the album. I love a focused concept album, and I think that this album has a lot of that. But we want to tell you guys how we know Old Burger Beats first. Are you familiar with Men's?
Nope.
Neither am I. And I was kind of surprised that I wasn't aware of him, because it seems as though he's been putting out work for a long time, but maybe I'm just not tapped into the Norwegian scene, or I just missed out some of the other collaborations that he's doing. Because one of the wildest thing about this album is the sheer number of collaboration, like artists that are on this album. The lineup is absolutely stacked. It's kind of like Blockhead's The Ox, in a way.
Exactly.
We've got Logi, we've got Il Camille, Lil B, Vic Spencer, who we're fans of. We're fans of all these people, but Pink Sifu, Billy Woods, The God Fahim, Mo Ruff, Fly Anakin, Quelle Chris, Young Morpheus, Gabe Nandez. The list goes on, even with other artists that I'm not very familiar with, like Cooley High, which I think is perhaps a group. Oliver II, I'm not terribly familiar with his work either. I have heard the name, but listen to that lineup. And every single, there's a few interludes that are just beats, but every single track is just artists that you probably know, love, and appreciate over Old Burger Beats. And it's what is it? 45 minutes.
45 minutes long.
It is 74 beats per second. Per minute. 74 beats per second. Yeah, this is called Burger Core.
Ultra pop.
Right, Burger Core. Yeah. But no, yeah, it's that. So let's see. Jay, you ready to get into discuss the broader idea of the album? Like, what are you feeling about this one?
So, like, broadly speaking, it is one of those kind of hauntology type things. It almost feels like an inversion of the Super Dope.
Buck 65.
The Buck 65 that we reviewed a little while ago. That Buck 65 haunts back to, harkens back to, like, old hip hop, like 80s hip hop.
I like where you're going here. Yeah.
Real Four Elements type shit. But also kind of recontextualized through like a modern lens. And this album also kind of does that, but 74 is pre-hip hop as we know it today. I think that culture has obviously existed and resonated in different dimensions back in the 70s, but it has this sense of being out of time, as the title implies.
I like where you're going with that, yeah.
At the same time, it does sound, it sounds well at home with like a lot of the stuff we've reviewed on here. Some of the dustier, like drumless, like, alternative hip hop. Yeah. Like, as we've mentioned, the feature list on here is star-studded. Like, a lot of these are like some of the illest cats in hip hop today.
Doing very different things.
Doing very different things.
Work, yeah.
And the album also manages to simultaneously be like, everything's at the same BPM. It's very jazzy, but at the same time, there's a lot of like diversity among the tracks, among the features, among the instrumentals, the drum patterns. Like, I was worried based on the conversation we'd had after we'd recorded the Jesse the Tree last week, that maybe this album was gonna bore me because the Jesse the Tree was like a very good album, but it does go at a pretty slow pace.
Yeah.
You know, it's 40 odd minutes long, and it lost me a few times in places, as I said in that review. And I was like, okay, this whole album's going to be 74 BPM for 45 minutes. That's a little concerning.
Yeah.
But actually, this record has a lot of diversity. It has a lot of like different changes up in the sounds. There's a lot of nuance and stuff going on here.
That I'm just thinking about what you said about hauntology. It's interesting. I won't really get into what that means in terms of like leftist theory and such, but it does very much harken back to 1974 in terms of like the jazz vibe. And I agree with you that perhaps 74 BPM would be a little bit slow and middling and get a little bit like bland after a while, perhaps a little bit too coffee shop for somebody to kick around with for a while, but just super jazzy afternoon jams. Like, one of the things that's interesting is that this album to me feels incredibly black. It feels, and it's coming from a Norwegian, or I don't know if he's a black Norwegian, but or whatever,
white.
but
or at least white passing.
This jazzy vibe is like, there's a message in this album that harkens back to the days of that kind of post civil rights, black and proud politics. And I don't want to overstate the connection here, but there's kind of a Gil Scott coolness to this with a measure of his seriousness, and it almost sounds like it gets towards that very spoken word, poetic, political, cool, almost pre-rap rapping style of Gil Scott here, and with like less of a measure of seriousness is Gil Scott. I think, like, I don't want to say that these guys are doing the same thing, but for those of you that know, like, I'm a huge jazz fan, and I believe that it's like truly the first American art form. It's built off the beauty and the struggle of black people. Hip hop for me is the direct lineage of that tradition of expression. It's the highest art form coming from like the lowest class, and this album takes parts of those traditions and creates something that really brings me in, that is so different from a lot of the jazzy hip hop that you'll get elsewhere. It's like, these are jazz beats, even the guys that execute it well, like the Roots, Avantdale Bowling Club, our guy Aaron Cholai. It's very different in that regard, but there's all these little intricate pieces that Old Burger Beats stacks up that are not just sample flips. It feels like he really put together this album in a wild way, and somehow got all of these artists who aren't necessarily talking about these things all the time on board with this message that is kind of like introspective, ultra black, and almost no games. Like, it's almost all like it's politically present, but it also feels old because like a lot of those things haven't changed for black people in the West, you know, the damned and detested Moors of the West. And so even if Il Camille is talking about Black Lives Matter, a lot of that shit harkens right back to that post-civil rights movement. And it's fucking impressive. It's amazing to me. Like, this album, I was expecting it to be good considering the features. I wasn't expecting to walk away thinking this is perhaps an easy top 10 album of the year for me. It might just be because of my kind of jazzy inclination, but I don't think that the beats are simple, or like, there's so much going on from the ones that sound like he's pulling like straight from a jazz session. But it's him putting all these samples and stacking all these samples, to the ones that are more head noddy hip hop with the drums driving things more than a jazz set approach. Like, this album is a sleeper, surprise fucking bangarang for me, like, incredible, impressive album for me. And I didn't know Old Burger Beats, and Jed and I have been calling him Old Dirty Burger, you know what I mean?
Burger Bastard,
Old Burger Bastard. I didn't know this before. I thought it was like the weirdest thing about this album to me is just his name. Like, this is high art. This is so well put together. This is so well put together, and we haven't even really talked about like the songs in particular here.
No.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I think a part of that does come from just how conceptual the album is. Like, this does feel like an album to be listened to in its entirety. You know, obviously that cohesion, just the fact that it is a singular beat that runs through the entire record at 74 BPM. You could play this in a DJ set as one song if you wanted to, if you, you know, did merge some of the tracks together a little bit more. You know, the whole thing comes together as one singular thing. I also really appreciate that even though a lot of these MCs are doing something a little bit different to what they usually do, all the voices are very distinct and recognizable. Il Camille still brings that like urgency and fire that she's known to bring on her tracks.
Even though it's kind of like slow, more spoken style with it. Yeah.
You know, you got Lil B and Vic Spencer on one track, and both of them bring like a certain dustiness, but like I've never really heard Lil B sound like this before. This isn't, obviously this is not fucking like a Martian, get my dicks. This doesn't sound like The Pack. This doesn't sound like something of God's Father. It's very, you know, different for Lil B, but at the same time, it still has that like Lil B bass freestyle thing going on.
Oh, it's definitely him just free form. That's
form,
also what it kind of works
like,
for too.
It's got some dope
it's
like
kind
spoken
of
word type thing.
It's like jazzy, yeah. Even, you know, Vic Spencer, who perhaps I earlier in a review from last year, I said he doesn't necessarily get towards like a politics in his music like that, but he's very like present on this and just dope as fuck. Another thing about the album is that every track flows into each other. It is very aware that it's creating a cohesive. It's an actual album. It's in that way it differs a little bit than the Aux. That the Aux is an album. It's all these tracks put together, but this one feels like he had ideas going in to weave all of these things together, and you kind of don't know the thing that signifies that you're going from track to track is usually the MC change and the beat change with them.
Yeah, like Pink Sifu is still bringing like his like smoky psychedelic sexiness to it. You know, Quelle Chris still brings like a bit of his like abnormal, like vulnerable,
very super black
radicalism to it.
Yeah. He's like a blaxploitation sitcom to me, like a lot of the things he do, because it's like a lot of it be like, damn bro, like you wildin' with the funny jokes, but it's also not like too lewd or antisocial and shit, and it's also like politically present. Billy Woods' verse on this shit, oh my god, like does he ever miss? Like, you think, you know, there's so much talent on this, but Woods he says, I wonder, was he close or was he far? So it goes. Time's slippery as the slaughterhouse flow. I used to think the means justified the ends. I had it backwards. I made amends. Niggas is men. Woods is that guy, bro. And he's got the God Fahim on here with him, which I don't know if they've done a track together before.
Right.
But it works.
It does work.
It fucking works.
And again, like, the hauntology element to it really comes through. You know, that track with Billy Woods and the God Fahim is Black Sabbath. Obviously Black Sabbath, very active band in 1974. I don't think they released any album that year, but they have releases in 73, 75. It's before Ozzy Osbourne left in 79, I think. Obviously those Kurt Vonnegut bars there, right? Slaughterhouse, so it goes. That's all Vonnegut. But then at the same time, like, you know, we've got a track on there called The Last of Us, which obviously, you know, that phrase has existed since long before the video game and ensuing TV show and stuff like that. But it also has a bit of that, like, you're still listening to something modern and contemporary, even though the, you know, the broader experience of the record, whether that's, you know, Black Sabbath or like Discipline 74, which is Sun Ra.
Okay.
Sun Ra, Discipline 27, I believe. Madlib also on the Quasimoto albums, Discipline 99,
Solid
right?
pull.
You got those pulls there.
That's why y'all come to us, maybe. We're also very handsome.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, okay. Yeah, man, there's something really magical going on with this. the track Out of Time by Il Camille, which is, you know, for the title, the namesake of the album, she's incredible. Like the one thing that I walked away from this album, I thought I walked away thinking two things, right? And it's because like it's a massive, she makes 2 appearances on the album, which is really dope. It's like, man, I want to hear more black women on this type of shit. Like black women are having such a moment in mainstream hip hop right now with your Ice Spices and your Meg Thee Stallion, you know, like they're having such a moment. Like Doja Cat is, I don't want to give it anyways, but like, yo, how ill would like Noname be on some shit like this?
What?
Like Il Camille is so dope. Like, man, this album really, I'm glad that we do what we do to highlight this, because I had a little Google this morning to see if anybody else reviewed this, and nah. This album, I want the vinyl. I like it. It speaks to me in so many ways. This album is almost, I don't want to say that it's made for me, but it feels like an album that is precisely in my wheelhouse. You know, I'm a Pan-African, socialist, Marxist, fucking black radical cat out here in Tokyo, spreading the gospel, so to speak, spreading all of it. And like, to me, this album just it pokes all of those type of sensibilities that I have when it comes to black politics. There's nothing on this album in terms of the black politics that are projected that kind of rub me the wrong way, from too far of a reactionary black radicalism, or from a very liberal black radicalism, race radicalism, like we're going to get into our next review a bit. But man, like, there's like every single one of these songs sounds different somehow, being at 74 BPM and maintaining a jazzy vibe. It's kind of astonishing. I highly recommend motherfuckers get to this shit.
If I went to like a cafe or a bar in Tokyo and they are playing this through some good speakers, I think it would just automatically become my favorite place in the city.
Bro, like, I'm telling you that, like, if y'all listen to like one review that we've done, well, I don't want to say that, but if you like, this one is different.
This is different.
Yeah, this is different.
It's also probably going to introduce you to some cats that you haven't thought about or you're not familiar with.
Mo Ruff is back.
Mo Ruff is back.
I know he released a single recently that's dope too, but 2 songs.
I know Oliver II through his collaborations with Jeremiah J. He's also on one of the John Wayne albums. I think he's an LA cat.
Okay.
DJ Charlie I wasn't familiar with, but he provides some of the turntablism and production, I assume, because that seems to be what he does. But it's like, I
must have missed it.
I want to go check Oliver II now, because like, you know, his contribution on his fucking ill.
I didn't know Cooley High. Apparently that's some type of crew, because it's more than one voice on there.
Yep. Also
Jay Vaughn and Vuyo. Also 2 artists that I'm gonna have to clock into, because this is one of the more like hip hop type beats. Like, it's still jazzy as shit, but I mean, man, it's good. This album is fucking good. Like,
also just like very listenable, very accessible, considering, you know, how it's relatively high concept, and, you know, all right, everything's going to be 74 BPM. It's jazzy, harkens back to the 1970s as a place in time, but also displaces, like, you know, it's got a lot going on, but at the same time, it's like the whole album just sounds really good. It's very pleasant. It was a very pleasant listen. I want to give a quick shout out to the homie Deza as well, because his song Tokyo Cool off the Nomad EP uses the exact same sample as Recuperating, and the beats are extremely similar, which kind of made me laugh when I first heard that track.
Yeah, that's a good ear then. Yeah. This is a jam too. Fly Anakin, bro.
Fly Anakin.
Yeah, this motherfucker though, like, man, this album is, I'm just happy that we get to talk about it, to be honest with you. Like, I was, you know, I had heard it was coming out. There was a bunch of tracks that came out earlier. He released a few singles. I was like, yeah, Old Burger Beats. We'll see what's up with that. You got a weird, wacky name. Let's see what's going on. I wasn't expecting this level of art, man. It's surprising to me. It's like getting a really dope toy out the cereal box, and the cereal is like,
you think the Norwegians are just hiding a ton of this from us? You know, we're like, I've never been to Norway. I'm assuming you've never been to Norway either.
Nah.
Like, are we gonna get there and it's just like, Oh yeah, no, we love the dope hip hop.
Yeah.
Yes, check out the Gabe Nandes.
Bro.
He comes here all the time.
I was with fucking Neil Armstrong, right?
Yeah.
The turntablist, Fifth Platoon and shit, right? And we were at like some sneaker store opening in Daikanyama, and these Norwegian guys came up and were like, "Oh, I remember your set in 1998 when you were battling, you know, like Rock Raider, and it was so amazing. We love you." Like, they're like Europe. Parts of Europe still love some four element type of hip hop shit, and so it's good that they not only tapped into your J-Rue the Damagers and helping him eat, but they're also still tapped in to this. And that's what hip like I'm not of the school that the hip hop is a black house and only everybody else is a guest in it. I think you take this, you put it on your identity, and you could rock and do whatever you do as long as you maintain a certain ethics. One of those ethics is most definitely supporting black people and understanding the plight that the African diaspora and the global South have gone through in order to make our lives better and be able to buy NPCs and shit like that. But man, like, yeah, I knew y'all was doing it dope, and I've been studying the map, bro. I know all the countries in Europe now. You be like, yo, where is, you know what I mean? Be like, where's Luxembourg? I mean, like, that little motherfucker right there. I'm doing, like, I'm not gonna be one of those Americans, but yeah, man. What are your favorite tracks on this one, Jet?
I got How I Live.
That's one of mine. I got 5.
Running. Okay, I always go for 3 when you say
I got
your
6.
favorites. I always go with 3.
We usually
and then
do
you
3.
just say half the album. I feel like that's the thing that you've been doing. So I'm gonna say How I Live, Running, and also fuck it, Recuperating.
All right, I'm gonna hit 3. Black Sabbath, Out of Time, Il Camille, right? I don't know if I want that Quelle, if I want Discipline 74, How I Live.
Fine, you can have both. You can have 4. You can have 4.
Last of Us, Change the World, How I Live, Discipline 74. I recommend this to all the homies. Like, there's nobody that I would leave off of the fucking get this list. Like, pay attention. Yeah. Read some theory. Our homies,
on the screen right now.
Yeah. Perhaps. I might just throw the patrons are on there. I feel like we should get a Patreon list and start shouting them out, because we've had a few that joined us recently, and I haven't given y'all a proper shout out recently. But man, we appreciate all y'all. Join the Discord. I think we might be doing a little book club in there with some real easy stuff, introduction to theory type of shit, because we got some homies in there. Borrowed Yeti, he wants to learn, and
yeah, we're building in the Discord. Come hit us up. Come say what's up. Yeah, run Tokyo Cool by Desert real quick.
Okay, hold on.
We don't have to include this at the end. I want to give him a little shout anyway. That's the homie. He's been on the show before.
Tokyo Cool.
It's on Nomad. Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah, Secret House. Thanks for tuning in.
Tokyo Bass.
Used to be scared of the stairs, now I embrace it. Used to think that life was unfair, now I escape it. I'm not running, I'm flying.